Hey there, art nerds. I am back with another brush review. Today we are taking a look at Artify watercolor brushes. I have two different sets here. They are both in their expert series. I have the 14-piece Pro watercolor brush set for watercolor, as well as the 17-piece watercolor brush set. This one I believe is natural hair fibers, and this one is high quality nylon bristles, perfectly crafted for watercolor masterpieces. We will be the judge of that. These were both purchased on Amazon with funds raised from Patreon as well as my teaching engagement. So if you want me to be able to continue to do reviews like this, a great way you can support that is by joining me over on Patreon. So they both say basically the same thing, so I'm only going to read one box. And they both claim to be professional watercolor boxes. They have a Facebook, an X, an Instagram, a TikTok, and they all have different names, so good luck there. Artify Art Supplies, Artify Yourself, Artify Art Supplies, Artify Inspires, and At Sake of Art. They also list their phone number as well as a contact. These were made in China, I believe, but Artify claims to be located in Chino, California. And then they also have a couple of discount codes, 20% off at artifyartsupplies.com. But anybody who has shopped on Amazon knows that Amazon does not like other places offering the cheapest value or the cheapest price, and they will penalize you for that. So that 20% off probably makes the price competitive or a little cheaper than Amazon. These are both shrink wrapped in plastic. It'll take me a little while to open them up. And if you are new here, hi, hello, welcome. I'm Becca Hillburn. I'm a watercolor comic artist and illustrator. I make the watercolor comic 7-inch Cara. I have been painting with watercolor for about 15 years. I have an MFA in sequential art, that would be comics, from SCAD. And I have a BA in digital art from the University of New Orleans. I have been teaching art for about 10 years and have been on YouTube sharing what I know with you guys for about 10 years. So both of these sets come in a somewhat challenging to open, actually, cardboard slipcase. Part of that might be the tape dot at the top, though. Can't believe I missed that. If you guys would like to check out my watercolor art and illustration, it is pretty much everywhere under the name Nattosoup, Nattosoup, or you can find it on my community tab because I do share what I'm working on over there. And you can read my watercolor comic as a webcomic for free at 7inchcara.com. So I have been using silver black velvet watercolor brushes for a long time now. They're starting to kind of degrade. They're starting to get run down. So I'm kind of on the market for some good alternatives. So these are the nylon brushes. They make it pretty obvious. They look a lot like Craftamo brushes, but they also kind of look like the Nik Pro brushes that I reviewed recently. That's the 17-piece set. And I'm trying to open the 14-piece set. Here we go. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, there were two dots on this one. I missed one somehow. So the interior of both of our boxes actually explains the brushes that are in the boxes, but they're pretty similar. So we're going to read the 14-piece watercolor brush set, the one with the darker fibers that may or may not, now that I'm looking at it, this set kind of looks like one of the sets that I reviewed recently, trying to Fumier, the Fuumuui brush set. This looks kind of like that. It seems to have like resin plastic handles. Now, to be real, most of these brands are purchasing their brushes white labeled. They're purchasing them from another company and putting their own branding on it, which is why it can be useful to watch reviews. That way you can find out which companies are using the same manufacturer and just go with whoever has the qualities that you like the best at the lowest price point. And since I do also teach, these brushes will get used. So the interior of the box says, art is a journey, not a destination. It's a path that wanders the tension and harmony between perfect and imperfect. Artify creates fine art supplies for everyone who wants to find harmony in their artistic journey. Beautiful, well-made, and satisfying to use. Find space for creativity every day. And then we have some brush care tips down here at the bottom. Gently rinse bristles under water to remove surface pigment. Actually, it's not pigment, it would be sizing for first use. Wash brushes gently in soap water. I like to use Old Masters soap for this. Reshape bristles to their original shape. Lay brushes and dry naturally. So don't be putting them back in this box where they're not going to dry out. So we also have a diagram that shows the brush types in each set. So we're going to start with the 14-piece set over here. We have a cat tongue, a flat, a dagger, and a round. Then moving on to the nylon set over here, we have an oval wash, a cat tongue, a flat, an angle, a dagger, a round, a filbert, and a detail. So this promises to reduce the plastic packaging. You can see we have a lot of plastic packaging over here. We have less over here. I guess you could put them back in their box. That is not my intention. Okay, we also have our plastic caps, and these are on here pretty good. So as a watercolor comic artist, I have pretty specific needs. I generally like to use round watercolor brushes, and my preference tends to lie towards natural fiber brushes or mixed fiber brushes. I'm really happy that none of the brushes that I've reviewed during, like I've been reviewing a few different sets to get them unpacked so I can start using them. None of them have used greenwashing terms, like claiming that these plastic brushes are going to be better for the environment. Also, I'm so sorry about that squealing noise. I got all of those out, and then I need to remove the caps. So anyway, as somebody who paints watercolor comics, I need to be able to paint a variety of subject matter, from landscapes to interiors to flowers to animals to people. And in 7-inch Kara, I definitely paint all of those things. It is a comic about a 7-inch tall little girl who discovers a huge family secret, befriends a ginormous pet kitten, and seeks out to explore the larger world around her. It features positive ADHD representation. So if you're looking for something sweet that's going to bring a smile to your face, I really recommend you check it out. Like I said earlier, you can read it for free as a webcomic, but I do have physical copies of the books available both in my shop and on Amazon. And of course, if you cannot afford to purchase one of my books, but you would like to, you can always fill out a library request form and let your local library do it for you. So these are the 14-piece professional brushes. I'm going to look at them a little more closely after I wash them. I do not think these are natural fibers. I do think these are synthetic fibers, but they're pretty good synthetic fibers. If you look closely at the flat, you can see some flagging and waving to the fibers. That's going to help it carry more water. These kind of remind me of like Neptune brushes, or like Creative Mark Rhapsody's black, not Creative Mark Rhapsody, Creative Mark Mimics black brushes. So these are the obviously synthetic brushes. They are cute, and they're not just straight up golden tack-on, so that's already an improvement. So as I was saying, I need to be able to paint a wide variety of things. So typically my preferred brushes are rounds because they're just good all-rounders. They're good at almost anything that you throw at them. But I also need to be able to paint tiny little faces. And not only do I do watercolor comics, but I do watercolor illustration. So I am frequently painting on combinations of cellulose paper like Canson Monk Ball, Canson XL for my classes and for my comic, as well as Moulin de Roy or Arch's cotton rag watercolor paper. So I need brushes that can kind of handle a variety of things. I need brushes that can gently fill large areas, and brushes that are capable of glazes and washes, brushes that don't just drip all over my paper, brushes that can get in there and do tiny little details. Brushes that are not gonna get worn out after the first use. And historically, I have not been the biggest fan of synthetics, although I do use mixed fiber, squirrel, and synthetic, and I find that in, you know, that was the silver black velvet, and for years that worked really well for me. So I am open to trying new things. And as an art educator, what I usually recommend to people who are just getting started with watercolor would be the Zen watercolor brushes, because they are very affordable and perform pretty well actually for the price point. But I do have videos where I talk about all the supplies that you'll need as a beginner watercolor artist. So, you know, if you are curious on starting your watercolor journey, or if you just like seeing what other people paint with, I'll try to remember to link all those for you guys down in the description below. When it comes to 17, there's a lot to unwrap. So I wanted to do these together because they are both from the same company, and I figured people would be curious how they compare, which set is a better fit for them, the properties of both. So what I plan on doing is I actually have a knockoff Buddha board that I like to use for my initial swatches. So what I think I'm going to do is I am going to fully test out one set of brushes, because we do have 14 and 17 brushes. That is a lot. That takes up a lot of space. So I'm going to fully test out one set of brushes on the fake Buddha board and then on watercolor paper. And then I'm going to test out the other set of brushes, and then I'll kind of talk about the differences. Now, just keep in mind that just because I don't like something, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with if you like it. We're all different people. We're all different artists. We all have different tastes and different needs. So your use might just be different from mine. We might just have different opinions on things. All of that is valid. I'm just trying to share my experiences and my information to help you guys make an informed decision when buying something like this, because frankly, I've been looking to kind of start phasing out some of my more chewed up, beaten up watercolor brushes anyway. So I would be swatching and testing these regardless. I just wanted to share the information with you guys in case it could be helpful. All right, that took a while and a good amount of plastic waste. So I am going to go head over to the sink and wash the sizing out of both of these. I am going to start with what I think is the nicer of the two brush sets, the 14-piece Pro watercolor brush set. These really remind me, like I said, of the Fumier brushes. I will be pulling those out in a minute to show you guys. I think this set has a good array of different brushes in it. We have and I just washed these and washed these out with Old Master soap as well, so they're wet. We have a 1-inch flat, a 3/4 inch cat tongue. We have a 1/2-inch dagger. We have a size 12 or about a 1/2 inch flat. We've got a size 10 flat. This is not really a 1/4 inch, a little bigger than a 1/4 inch. Then we have what looks like a 1/4 inch or a size 6 flat. We have a 3/8 inch dagger. We have a 3/8 inch cat's tongue. And then we have a selection of rounds starting at a 12. Now, when it comes to watercolor brushes, they are like women's pants. The sizes are kind of arbitrary. They vary from brand to brand. So don't, sweat that aspect of it too much. These seem to be fairly well made. I don't necessarily think these are actually wood. I think these might be a plastic resin that is supposed to look like wood. The ferrules are pretty, they're not as light as some brands I've used. And you want your brush to be balanced and comfortable in your hand, and that's going to depend on different people. I have Sjogren's, and with my Sjogren's, I also have arthritis and arthralgia. I have a lot of hand and grip and strength issues in my hands, despite doing OT and PT and drawing for literally decades. So for me, brushes that are comfortable in the hand and well balanced are really important, and cheaper brushes are often just not that. Speaking of, I paid this much for this set on Amazon, And I really like, so the ferrule is a heavier weight. It's well balanced to the brush. The brush has a good heft to it. While it is not lacquered, it does seem to be a decent weight plastic. And it's not going to, I think, splinter or absorb water or, you know, develop some of the problems that wood brushes can sometimes develop. The ferrule seems well made. The fibers have a little bit of flagging to them, so they look like they should be able to hold water better. Just going off my gut instinct, I would say this is the better of the two sets. This is my knockoff Buddha board, and all this does is it allows us to demonstrate our different brush strokes without wasting paper. Don't worry, I will be wasting paper in a little bit, but this kind of gives us a chance to get a feel for how these brushes are going to handle. And you use this with clean water, and I just got this at Five Below a few years ago. It does look kind of manky. I don't really care. We're going to start with the flat. So far, it seems to hold on to water quite well. That would be the flagging. So this flat would be great for applying an even and wet wash of water. Let's say for skies. Next, we're moving on to the cat's tongue. Still does a really good job holding on to that water. This is a softer brush. It feels similar to a squirrel hair. It's capable of quite thin lines as well. It does hold and put down a good amount of water. Next is our 1/2 inch dagger. This one has a good amount of flex as well. None of these are particularly snappy. So if you like synthetic brushes with a lot of snap, these would not necessarily be it. But if you like to do a lot of layering and glazing, these are going to be more gentle on your paper surface. Next is our 12 flat. I would say these are kind of gentle brushes. We're not getting, when we get dry brushing, we're not getting the like really extreme dry brushing that you might get from a synthetic. Now, I like dry brush. I like the texture that it brings, but I like having options and I like knowing the qualities of my brushes. Then the size 10 flat. So all of these hold a lot of water. They are not particularly drippy. And because the brush itself, the handle itself, feels like it is made of resin, it's not going to absorb water. So that means the lacquer is not going to flake off on you. That said, it has a good slight wood texture to it. So it doesn't feel as cheap as some of the plastic handled brushes I've taken a look at. So I would say it's a good balance between affordability and quality. This is the 3/8 inch dagger. So one of the reasons I have been buying sets is, one, a lot of these brands don't do open stock, which is how I historically have bought my watercolor brushes, is as I need them here and there. But also, sets can be a great way for a beginner to get what they need to get started, and it's nice to be able to recommend sets. Next is the 3/8 inch cat's tongue. Again, holds a good amount of water without dripping. Very soft, but a decent amount of flex. And then we're moving into the rounds, as I have no room. So the size 12 round. Okay, now I'm starting to see a little bit of dripping, but it was also sopping wet. Very soft, but it does have some flex. It's not a total wet noodle. And it does come to a nice point. That's one of the reasons I'm looking to replace my silver black velvets, is they're just not coming to a point anymore. They've been used to death. size smaller round. I'll tell you the size in a minute. Similar properties, feels good in the hand. That was a size 8. Now we're moving down to a 6. And while I really like silver black velvet, they are kind of pricey. So I figured I would see, you know, what else is available on the market. And since a lot of these companies white label from the same manufacturers, I figured it was worth, you know, finding the best price and finding some qualities that I like. Next is the size 4. These, like the Fumier brushes, really remind me of Creative Marks Mimic, and I really did like Mimic, and I know a lot of people who like Mimic, so if you're looking for an alternative to Mimic for whatever reason, these could be a great option, except those actually use wooden handles. Next is a size 2 round. I'll dab off that little bit of extra water. With synthetics, you do want to have good water control, have your paper towel handy. And then finally, our size 0. This is what I would use to do like eyelashes, highlighting, rim lighting, finer details. Usually this size is also the size that I would go for a stiffer synthetic because I am working much more thickly with the paint. So far, I'm pretty happy with these Artify brushes. So I mentioned that these remind me of the Fumier brushes. So I went and pulled out my Fumier brush set. That video should be live by now. I will link it in the description and in the card since I am kind of directly comparing the two. Both of these sets were purchased on Amazon. I paid this, I paid this much for the Artify. I paid this much for the Fumier. This is a 14-piece set. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a 10-piece set. And before we get too far into this, I just want to ask you guys if you like these kind of reviews, if you find them to be helpful, useful, and informative, if you would consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification. That way you won't miss my tutorials and my reviews. Even if you think you are a subscriber, do me a massive favor and double check because YouTube tells me that 80% of you guys are not subscribers, and I sure would love to see you guys around here more, especially because I've got a bunch of great watercolor reviews coming up, as well as some really relaxing watercolor time lapses. So if you enjoy watching other artists process, make sure you are subscribed. So what I want to do is find two similar brushes. So this is the 3/4 and this is the 3/4. The Fumier has a longer handle to it. They do actually seem a little bit different. And I don't mean just the color, I mean how the ferrule was crimped. However, both of them, oh, and the handle on the Fumier is a little more narrow than the handle on the Artify. Now, for me, the size of my hand and my hand health issues, the Artify is a little more comfortable in my hand than the Fumier, although the Fumier was quite comfortable at the time. And I feel like the Artify has a little bit of a nicer belly on it than the Fumier does. Let's grab a couple rounds. So this is a 14 and this is a 12. Not exactly apples to apples, but actually we can do a 12. Here we go. So again, longer handle, but both of them seem, oh, look at this. The body screening for the round part is the same font. Curious. But the handle on the Fumier is thinner than the handle on the Artify. And the Artify does seem to come to a better belly, and I'm seeing more pronounced flagging in the Artify. These really do handle similar, little not as soft, but still good as Natural Squirrel. Whereas, I mean, the Fumier were great too. I was really happy with them. I will be using both of these sets. Both of these really remind me of Art Secret watercolor brushes, which I also happen to like. It wouldn't entirely surprise me if that was the original manufacturer. Now I want to put these, this is the 14-piece set, to the test on watercolor paper. So this is Blick's cotton rag watercolor paper. And I just want to remind you guys that everything you guys see here was purchased out of pocket by me using funds raised from my Patreon and from in-person teaching engagements. So if you like what I do and you want to help me continue to be able to do it, you can join me over on Patreon for just $2 a month at patreon.com/natosoup. Not only will you get early access to videos and reviews like this, you will get backer exclusive access to the materials that I create for my in-person classes, such as presentations and printables. And then I try to share at least one line art a month. It really depends on what I'm working on. There are some months where you guys will get 5 line arts a month. So again, it really kind of depends. But you guys can go check out what I have to offer. I do have a free almost weekly newsletter that I share over on Patreon that anybody can read, that shows what I'm working on and my process and in-process sketches. And it collates the videos that I've released, all that kind of good stuff at patreon.com/natosoup. So I am working with the Rosa Galleria watercolors because I am preparing for an art supply redemption video where I attempt to redeem myself. And these are nice, large hole pans. And this is a Ukrainian watercolor company. So we're going to start with our 1-inch flat. So normally I would work with ceramic palettes to mix the color a little bit better, but it holds its water all the way through. So if I had mixed the color more evenly, we would have gotten like a really nice even stripe of color without there being too much dry brushing. And again, dry brushing, there's nothing wrong with dry brushing, but you want to be able to control that technique. So that is the 1-inch flat. Now we're moving on to the 3/4 inch cat's tongue. Seeing more dry brushing here as the bristles kind of splay apart. Nice responsive bristles. So I'll be real, I don't like a particularly stiff watercolor brush. I like softer, more like squirrel hair brushes. So this is definitely a matter of like preference and taste. There is nothing wrong if you like a stiffer brush. Next is the 1/2 inch dagger. And in fact, we will be talking about what I suspect will be stiffer watercolor brushes later on in this video. By the way, I always put chapters in my videos. You guys are totally welcome to skip around, skip to the parts that you're interested in. That does not hurt my feelings. Next is the size 12 flat. So it doesn't hold as much water. We can start seeing, oh my gosh, hang on. There we go. We can start seeing the speckling there. And that doesn't mean it's a bad brush. It just means it doesn't hold as much water. Next is the size 10 flat. And since I am not actually showing any of my art in this video, it would really mean the world to me if you take a minute to check it out. You can find me on pretty much all social media sites at natosoup, N-A-T-T-O-S-O-U-P. And I also share art to my community tab. So that is the flat. My hands are shaking a little bit this morning. The weather's gotten cold here in Southeast Louisiana, so the Sjogren's has been acting up. Next is a size 6 flat. And if there are any interesting watercolor brands that you think I should be talking about here on the channel, whether it is paint or brushes, let me know down in the comments. Next is a 3/8 inch dagger. My regular art audience tends to be kind of shy, but I love hearing from you guys. And if you're more comfortable with sharing privately, you can join my art-centric Discord server, The Paint Box. I'll try to remember to pop a link in the description. So all of these are pretty soft. So if you have a shaky hand like I do, you may find it harder to draw a straight line with them. Next is our 3/8 inch cat tongue. Speaking of cat tongue, some of you guys have asked me to show Bowie more in videos, and basically Bowie decides when Bowie wants to be in videos. He doesn't really like the camera a whole lot, so I generally don't point it at him, but sometimes he'll hop up on my lap when I'm talking and want to be part of the video, so I kind of just let him choose. He predates, maybe not YouTube because we adopted him in 2009, but he definitely predates me being on YouTube, so I kind of try to respect his wishes. Next is a size 12 round. And then unfortunately, Basil passed away in October, and my heart is still broken over that. Miss my boy. But if Basil taught us one thing, it is that we love rats. So we're hoping to adopt like a pair of brothers or a pair of sisters a little bit later on in the spring. Used to share so many pictures and videos of Basil to Twitter and to Blue Sky. In fact, he would not have made it. He would not have survived if it wasn't for other kind rat owners teaching me how to raise an orphan pinky roof rat over on Twitter. So I basically shared his whole life with them because I was just so grateful for their help. Size 8. But I didn't share him on YouTube so much here because people could be really cruel about him. Liking these rounds. So unfortunately, the really best way to get a feel for watercolor brushes is to actually paint with them. And with the Fumier brushes, I have some Fumier watercolors, so I'm going to use those with the watercolors for the field test, since I've already kind of vetted them. Size 6. If you guys would like to see if you guys would like to see a standalone field test of these brushes painting an illustration, let me know down in the comments. This is size 6 round. These are very soft, but not overly difficult to control. There's some brushes that I've used that are so soft that it actually requires a lot of hand strength to control them, and I find them tiring to use. That is not the case with these. Oh, and I will be scanning my swatches and sharing them over on my Patreon as digital art assets. This is a size 2 round for people who either like to do digital art, but they like it to look more traditional, or they want to add some grit, as well as for traditional artists like myself who may need these kind of assets to make corrections to our existing work or our comics. And then finally, our smallest, the size 0. This is what I would use to do highlights, like I said. This is what I would use to use eyelashes. This one's a little soft. This might be better for filling smaller areas rather than doing dry over wet sort of details. So here is the 17-piece Artify set. They are wet because I just washed them in brush soap and haven't had a chance to really dry them out. So I'll do that as I talk. These really remind me of makeup brushes. These are a thicker sort of synthetic fiber, so it said nylon. They all seem to have bristles about the same size, so there's no difference in the size of bristles. Some people say that that helps with, you know, water retention. There's also no flagging in these bristles. So while these are like dense, they are very stubby. Like this round is a very, very short round. And just looking at these, I would say these would not be my preference for watercolor. That said, I feel like these might be good for gouache. And I've been meaning to like start noodling around with gouache this year. I want to kind of expand my mediums and try some new things in 2026. So these might be perfect for gouache. We are, however, trying them with watercolor today. But maybe when I try out that massive Hemi gouache set I have, I will pull these out and we can use them and see if they're any good. And you guys will have to let me know because I don't have a whole lot of experience with gouache. But I do, the friend who taught me watercolor 1 million years ago knows how to use gouache. Maybe I can get them to teach me a thing or two about gouache. All right, so this is the 17-piece set. I'll start organizing them for you. Like I said, they really look like makeup brushes to me. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it may be a this is not good for watercolor kind of thing. If you have these brushes and you like them, let me know in the comments. Whatever, as I said earlier, whatever my opinion is, sorry, ADHD mush mouth. Whatever my opinion of these ends up being, that does not make your lived experiences any less valuable, any less true. It is just a difference of opinion. I know some people hear me say this and they're like, Becca, duh. But some people do need to be reminded that just because we don't like the same things, it is not a judgment call at all. So these definitely kind of sort of remind me of the Craft Amo brushes. I'm not going to pull those out. You guys might be like, Becca, everything reminds you of the Craft Amo brushes. That's because the Craft Amo brushes seem to white label from everybody. So they have a variant of some stripe that looks like any other synthetic brush you might see on the market. So these are the Nick Pro brushes that I reviewed recently. Okay, so I paid this much for the Artify brushes. I paid this much for these Nick Pro brushes. And these are the Transom brushes. And I like these decently well. I paid this much for the Transom brushes. So in terms of quality, these feel like they are plastic. They might be lacquered wood. These feel a little nicer than the Nick Pro brushes. They also just look a little nicer. And then that's not, you know, the end all be all, but like, I don't know, man. The aluminum ferrules don't do it for me. The Nick Pro brushes are very light and cheap feeling in the hand, whereas these feel a little more sturdy, more balanced, more substantial. And then the Transom brushes, which I also liked, again, feel a little more sturdy, more substantial. These, let me see, they're gonna have different bristles for sure, but yeah, the bodies are a little bit different. It's something about the way the ferrule is crimped that made me be like, oh, these are kind of similar. But even though these are both cat's tongue, you can see they come to two very different kinds of points. So the fiber your brushes are made of really do matter, and it can really change how they handle. I also want to point out that while I've been doing this for a long time, I am still learning new things all the time. I'm growing and changing and developing as an artist, just like you are. My opinions may change from year to year, depending on my subject matter and where my passions lie and where my health is at and just what materials I'm working with. So I am human, and we can disagree about things. My Buddha board, my knockoff Buddha board, is not entirely dry, but I think it's dry enough for us to like swatch some of these and get some impressions. It'll at least give us an idea of how these are going to handle. So far, they do seem to hold their water decently well. This is a stiffer synthetic brush. So if you like a more assertive synthetic brush that isn't as floppy or flexible, this could be a good fit for you. The handle has a nice, comfortable belly out, which could be nice for folks who have hand health issues like myself. That was the 12 angle. Next is the 3/4 inch oval wash. Definitely stiffer. I find that these may be more prone to lifting up pigments when you're doing a glaze. Next is the 10 cat's tongue. This one's going to be drippy. Oh yeah. So I have a feeling anything that comes to a direct point, it's not going to be able to hold its water because we don't have any flagging. And these don't really, they have a little bit of a belly, but not as much as you would see with a natural or a mixed fiber brush. Then the 10 dagger. Very drippy. But I also didn't do any water control with these either. And if I was painting an illustration, I would do water control. It is much easier though to draw really nice, crispy, straight lines with these. So that is a reason you might want to use a stiffer synthetic like this. Is if you haven't yet developed the hand control, these will kind of force some of that rigidity onto you. Very easy to draw nice straight lines. Next is the 3/8 inch flat. And I may go back over some areas since we have 17 of these to do. A nice long flat. It's kind of strange to me that this is so long and some of their rounds are just so stubby. Then the 8 dagger. Do you have a favorite brush type? I don't mean brand, I mean style, like flat, angled shader, dagger, round. Let me know in the comments. I am super boring. My favorite is the good old standard round. They can do just about anything. Next is the size 6 angle. And while I do prefer natural hair and mixed fiber brushes, I do use synthetic brushes quite often, whether it's larger sizes because that's more affordable for me, or because I want to get in there with some gouache and do some highlights and I want a stiffer brush, or I'm teaching a class and I need something affordable that they are not going to ruin by leaving it in the water. Please don't leave brushes in your water. This is really long. This is almost like a liner brush. This is the 1/4 inch flat. That's one of the longest 1/4 inch flats I've seen that's sold as a 1/4 inch flat. Then a 4 cat's tongue. These are very stiff because some of them are just so short. Like this could be used as like a lift out brush. Size 4 filbert. Yeah, they dumped all the water in the beginning and then it dry brushes towards the end. So it's not really good at water control. However, the handles themselves are at least comfortable. I've used some cheap brushes that like were so uncomfortable in my hands. Size 4 dagger. Now we're moving on to the rounds. These are very stubby for rounds. This is a size 12 round. For apples to apples comparison, This is so much like women's clothing. Okay, this is also an Artify round. We just looked at this. This is a size 12. This is a size 12. Look at the difference between the brush sizes. There's just no standardization. You can also see, let me see if I can get it to focus. You can also see the wiggliness of the fibers maybe in the black brush. I can see it in person. I don't know if it's apparent to you on camera. Whereas this is just super straight up and down. No wiggle, no movement. That wiggle helps hold on to water. So this doesn't have a very long brush to it. So if you were doing calligraphy, you would be kind of limited with just how long your strokes can be, how deep the belly can be. There's like all kinds of limiting factors. This is closer to the size 12. Also, the difference between this 12 and this 10 seems like it's kind of arbitrary how they're assigning the sizes. These are very drippy. Nothing to hold that water. This one has better flex because the diameter to brush length ratio is a little bit better. Then the size 6. Oh, very, 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 very drippy. If you are new to watercolor, I have a couple of playlists that I think you'll find interesting. I have a Watercolor 101. I also have a Watercolor Crash Course, which is like a 6-class introduction to how I use watercolor. And then I've just got so many watercolor tutorials from over the years, whether we're doing watercolor comics or watercolor illustrations. I have a cartoony art style, which I think, brings something different to the table by using traditional watercolor. So if you think that kind of art is charming and you're interested in learning how to do it, check the description below for some playlists. Also, if you are just new to art and you would like to learn how to draw as well, I've got a boatload of great drawing tutorials. But I would recommend you also check out my Start to Finish series, where I draw, ink, and watercolor and illustration. And speaking of my Patreon, I always share the line arts from that over on Patreon for my friends who just want to print it out and color along. Then a size 2. Oh, very drippy. You're going to have to do the water control with these. And then finally, this is called a detail. Some people call it a liner. So it's a very long brush that is very drippy. I'm not really a fan of these. I find these difficult to control, but some people like them. They can be used for pinstriping, for example. And the length of the brush supposedly helps even out the wobbliness of your hand. Okay, so now let's pull out that watercolor paper. We're still using the, my brain wanted to say Roman Smalls. It's not. It's Rosa Galleria watercolors. And I am going to just work my way back through these brushes. I'm trying to decide where I want to start. Let us start with our size 12 angle. And I just want to say, I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys today. I hope, no color control at all with these. All right, you definitely got to mix your colors in advance. It has been a pleasure getting to play around with and demonstrate these watercolor brushes with you guys, getting to share my thoughts with y'all. I really hope y'all have enjoyed it too. Next is the oval wash. I get kind of lonely over here on YouTube sometimes, but I love hearing from you guys. Oh, it's gonna drip. Drip, drip, drip. Come on, just hurry up and drip. Oh, these are going to stain too, probably, because they're a light colored synthetic. I don't really care about that. I'm just pointing it out. that some of these colors like phthalo blues are going to stain these brushes and they're not going to be so pretty and cute anymore. I do not, believe it or not, paint for aesthetics. Can you tell from my set? It looks terrible. But some people do care a lot about the vibe, and that might bother them. I have ADHD. If I cared about the vibe, I would just always be disappointing myself. I have to just go with my best and accept that there's going to be flaws, imperfection, things like that. Because otherwise, see the dioxazine purple's already stained it. Otherwise, I would just constantly be in for disappointment. Some people can roll with that a little better. Some people have better attention to detail than I do. So, next is the size 10 cat's tongue. Kind of like these just demonstrating a thing videos because it's just one, it's easy to edit, two, it's easy to record, and three, I can actually get a little more chatty without it taking up, super much time. I know some of you guys have asked if I could do some shorter videos. This is probably not one of them because I am comparing two very similar paintbrush sets. This is a size 8 filbert, so it's probably not going to be all that short, but some of the other watercolor brush videos are much shorter. And I'm glad about that because I get it. Like, those longer videos are not as accessible. They end up in your watch later. You totally mean to watch them and then you never do. And I'm the same way. I'm speaking of my own lived experience here. Whereas something 20 minutes, you could put it on during your lunch break or when you're decompressing in between classes. Next is a size 8 dagger. It's just hard for me, like if I'm doing time lapses, I don't want to edit out parts that are like relevant. Part of that is because I like seeing the whole process. I like seeing how other people work. That was a size 8 dagger, but also because it has been brought to my attention that people are using generative AI to fake process videos. Hate that. We live in the worst timeline. So, sharing my whole process helps you guys see that I am who I say I am. This is a 3/8 inch flat. I feel like generative AI has just ruined so many good things. Ooh, you could get a really nice clean line with this one. Just learn how to draw. You don't even have to be good, just learn how to draw. Drawing is so rewarding. Maybe not in terms of attention from other humans, but like, it's just such a nice thing to know how to do. It's one of my favorite things. I carry my little iPad all over the place with me because I just like drawing. Don't even share everything I draw. That's what a sketchbook is for. A place to just get your ideas out. This is a size 6 angle. This is a 1/4 inch flat. And I know this is like kind of fighting words. I don't really have a lot of respect for people who use generative AI at all. 1/4 inch. I mean, I have respect for them as human beings, but I would have so much more respect for them as artists if they just drew ugly things and shared those ugly things, because I like ugly art. I like seeing where people are at all stages of their development. I guess it's not even ugly art. I mean, some people consider it ugly. It's just, different, You're still learning new skills. You're still developing. I love it. That's one of the reasons I teach. I love seeing people try and learn new things and watching the penny drop and watching it click for them. Size 4 filbert. YouTube doesn't really allow me to see when I help people. So I like teaching in person because I like being able to see that what I did mattered to somebody else, that I had a positive impact in someone's life. I think that's incredibly rewarding. And I like being able to use art to do that. That's why I haven't quit. My channel is like super duper unpopular. I've been doing this forever and it's never really grown. but I like being able to share and maybe reach people. This is a size 4 cat's tongue. And even though I'm not popular, I've gotten some like really beautiful messages like during the pandemic where people told me my videos helped them get through panic attacks or they made them feel less lonely. And like that gives my life value. It gives what I'm doing. I am so sorry about all these flies. I know they're gross. I don't know where they're coming from. It's Louisiana. We've been vacillating between 80-degree days and 30-degree days. So I don't know, y'all. That is a size 4 cat's tongue. Go away, please. But yeah, so that's why I keep doing it, even when, you know, it's not rewarding or it can be kind of depressing, is because every now and then I'll get a message from somebody. This is a size 4 dagger, that what I did made a difference for them and made their bad day better, or that made their breakup easier, or it taught them something, or because we're so similar, they sought an ADHD diagnosis. Like all of those things give my life value and make me feel like I'm part of the community. All right, it's a size 12 round. I swear that fly. You're here to embarrass me, aren't you? You know I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to chase you out. It starts getting the dry brush. These are not great for water control. I am interested though in seeing how they'll handle for gouache. And you know, I turn my nose up at Golden Taklon. I really don't like it, but I do use it when I'm doing like acrylics. Even though I don't like it, I haven't found brushes that I like for acrylics better. What he's doing is he's drinking the water and whatever. So usually with watercolor paints, a lot of the binders have a sweet element, like gum arabic is sweet. Some companies use honey. So it's probably eating the sugar and the water. Trying to think what color I want to grab, because we have 17 colors and I've been kind of avoiding the browns, but just because they aren't as colorful. But you know what? Why not? A beautiful brown is still a beautiful brown. It's still a beautiful color. Okay, 3 more. This one, drip, drip, drippy. And I've had people be kind of mean about my watercolor on the internet, which is, you know, not chill, but fine. I just want to point out, I didn't actually go to school for watercolor. I went to school for comics and digital art. I had a friend teach me the basics of watercolor, and then I learned from books and from YouTube and from other people's blogs and from so much trial and error and making mistakes. And I even shared that whole process back when I had a blog, which would be natasoup.blogspot.com. But I haven't updated in like 5 years. So, you know, I am also capable of learning and growing and making mistakes and changing my opinion, same as anybody else. But I don't like referring to my watercolor aspect as being self-taught, because I'm not. I learned from other people. I learned from the internet. There were a lot of other artists who went into my education. I didn't learn in a cave. And I personally feel like if I were to refer to it as self-taught rather than self-directed or school of internet, that would be flattening out all the other artists whose work have gone into inspiring me and in teaching me how to watercolor. All right, so we have, that fly is really mocking me. We have done all 17 of these brushes. I'm gonna go grab the 14-piece set and we're gonna kind of do our finishing thoughts. So to our left, we have the 14-piece Artify watercolor brush set. To our right, we have the 17-piece set. I thought one of these would be natural hair fibers. Neither. These both seem like they are synthetic. I paid this much for the 14-piece set. I paid this much for the 17-piece set. This set is labeled, they're both labeled Expert Series. I think that's a misnomer. This one I would say is something I can definitely see myself using with my regular watercolor work and my regular watercolor comics. Whereas this set, which is also labeled Expert, I would not. It says perfectly crafted for watercolor masterpieces. I mean, maybe for you, you might like this set. For me, no. If I were to recommend one set to you guys, it would be the 14-piece set. I like the build quality better. I like the fact that they have flagged bristles. I think they handle better. They handle more similarly to a squirrel. They are better at water control. In general, I think this is a higher quality set. This set, I don't want to just like totally chuck it out because the build quality is pretty decent. However, if you care about staining, they are going to be prone to staining, and I am going to go wash these out with Old Masters brush soap. I don't really care about staining, but it doesn't, it doesn't look great on camera either. I'm excited to see how these are going to handle with gouache though, because they are much stiffer but fluffier brushes, so they may be better for a heavier bodied paint, water-based paint, than watercolor. Both of these were purchased out of pocket. I don't really feel like I wasted my money, but again, I'm hoping that I can use these for gouache. I would not really use these for watercolor, but that's also like my personal preference based on the kind of things that I like to paint. So would I recommend the 14-piece set? Yes. I don't recommend the 17-piece set, but your mileage may vary and we all differ as artists with differing tastes. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today, for listening to me yammer, and for allowing me to compare two different brush sets from the same company. Hopefully this was helpful in allowing you to make an informed decision about which of these, if either of these, you're the most interested in purchasing. If you found this video to be helpful, let me know by leaving a thumbs up. Those really mean a lot to me. And please consider sharing this video in a watercolor or art network that you use, whether it's Reddit or Blue Sky or Threads or Facebook. Wherever you like to talk about art, if you think this will help people over there, please share it. Your positive word of mouth means a lot to me, and it just helps so much in building an audience. Speaking of, do me a favor, double check and make sure that if you like this video and you want more like it, that you are subscribed. And please consider watching some of the other watercolor and art videos that I've got coming up in the pipeline, or checking out some of my amazing backlog. I've been doing this for 10 years and I have tutorials on comics and zines and drawing and watercolor and alcohol markers and doing conventions and all kinds of things that you guys might think interesting or helpful. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful, useful, and informative, and I certainly hope this was helpful in helping you guys make human art a habit, because I think human art belongs to everyone, and I think anybody is capable of learning it. Even Matisse, who went blind later in life, turned to cut paper collages when he could no longer see. So art truly belongs to everybody. You just have to be willing to put the time and energy into it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you guys, hopefully, again soon. Bye, guys.